A fascinating aspect of this tradition is the strict adherence to protocol. If a person enters the village while the gate is closed, the rituals are considered compromised. In such an event, the intruder is held responsible and must bear the cost of performing the entire ritual again. The implication of these legends is that the sophisticated cultural traditions of the plains were a later development. Many communities in the North Kachar Hills, the Barak Valley, and Tripura believe themselves to be descendants of the mighty Bhima from the Mahabharata, while the Manipuris often trace their lineage to Arjuna. These tribes, particularly Kacharis, believe Gatotkacha was their northeastern progenitor, whereas Babruvahana was the forefather of the Manipuris. Ali means root or seed, I means fruit, and Ligang means sowing. Like many spring festivals in the region, it is marked by uninhibited merrymaking and the consumption of rice beer. What brings it closer to Bihu is the dance style, the brisk footwork, the fluid movement of the arms, and the rhythmic swaying of the hips. Consider the Bhangra of Punjab. It possesses immense verve, yet it fares differently when one considers its proximity to the natural world. In Bhangra, the primal instinctual dance with nature does not play as conspicuous or attention-grabbing a role. The elements of melody and sensuality in Bihu are tethered to the elemental rhythms of the earth itself. It is here that Bihu achieves a unique harmony. When we examine the lyrical content, we find that Bihu songs reflect life in a way that is profoundly original, comprehensive, and artistically accomplished. The repertoire of Bihu is an enviable treasure bequeathed to posterity, an unbroken flow of creativity that began with the very first act of cultivation. Unlike many cultural traditions that have lost their way, Bihu has not sacrificed the essential elements of its origin. Welcome to a truly mind-bending video on springtime spectacles of Northeast India. While discussing the Garia festival of the Tripuris, I have previously explored the Boishagu festival of the Boro Kacharis, seeking parallels between the two. I have also examined Bihu's influence on Baishagu, as well as the connections between the Chakma, or Hajong Biju, and Bihu. Yet, untangling which traditions influenced others and identifying the specific factors that contributed to the development of these regional customs is a complex task, one that often defies common perception. However, I believe Bihu is the final synthesis of a cultural ethnogenesis that renders this region a remarkable confluence of diverse ethno-cultural identities. While this survey of the region's spring festivals attempts to highlight distant elements that may have shaped the genesis of Bihu, it is the spring festivals indigenous to Assam that seem most intimately instrumental in forming the Bihu statement. Take, for example, the Ali I Ligang festival of the Mishings. It is essentially a fertility rite and undeniably the tribe's most vibrant spring celebration. Ali means root or seed, I means fruit, and Ligang means sowing. Like many spring festivals in the region, it is marked by uninhibited merrymaking and the consumption of rice beer. What brings it closer to Bihu is the dance style, the brisk footwork, the fluid movement of the arms, and the rhythmic swaying of the hips allow the spectator to catch a glimpse of the unmistakable Bihu spirit. The joie de vivre and raw passion of the dancers also mirror the Bihu ethos. During the community feasts, pork and dried fish are the preferred delicacies, accompanied by poro apong, a traditional rice beer. Noteworthy is their profound understanding of the natural world. During the 5 days of the festival, the Mishing people observe strict taboos to protect the delicate balance of nature. Fishing, tree felling, tilling the land, and burning wood are forbidden. The Bohagyo Bishu of the Dioris brings us even closer to Bihu in both theme and content. The tribe views this as their way of welcoming the new year. While the lack of rigid, calendar-bound rules might suggest the festival can commence whenever the community decides to celebrate the return of nature's procreative season, it traditionally begins on a Wednesday. The mesmerizing Diodani dance and Husori, the singing of ceremonial songs, remain the chief attractions. While the Boishagu of the Boro Kacharis is, arguably, the closest to Bihu in concept, style, and art. We must also acknowledge the Rajini Gabra and Harni Gabra of the Dimasa tribe. These fertility rites are observed in a notably serene atmosphere. Rajini Gabra begins during the day. The Kunang, that is, village headman, declares the start of the festival by closing the village gate. As night falls, the Harni Gabra rituals commence. A fascinating aspect of this tradition is the strict adherence to protocol. If a person enters the village while the gate is closed, the rituals are considered compromised. In such an event, the intruder is held responsible and must bear the cost of performing the entire ritual again. In this age of modern connectivity, Bihu is casting an increasingly inescapable spell over the tribes of Assam and its neighboring states. Many indigenous groups are currently in the process of developing their own localized versions of Bihu, while simultaneously digging deep to unearth their own ancestral traditions. The most significant contribution this cultural wave can make to a region, often grappling with an identity crisis, is to serve as a powerful, unifying beacon. I once referred to Bihu as the mother of all Northeastern spring festivals. Perhaps, however, it is more apposite to call it their daughter. The most refined and stylized expressions of a culture often arrive last, and there is a persistent psycho-historical tradition, one pitting the hill peoples against the plains dwellers, which posits that the relatively refined plains groups were descendants of the younger among the ancient brothers. The implication of these legends is that the sophisticated cultural traditions of the plains were a later development. Many communities in the North Kachar Hills, the Barak Valley, and Tripura believe themselves to be descendants of the mighty Bhima from the Mahabharata, while the Manipuris often trace their lineage to Arjuna. These tribes, particularly Kacharis, believe Gatotkacha was their northeastern progenitor, whereas Babruvahana was the forefather of the Manipuris. These are but a few examples. The region is rich with such time-honored beliefs. In this light, it is perhaps wiser to view Bihu as the daughter of all Northeastern folk traditions. Indeed, the scholar Dr. Jogesh Das, in his work Folklore of Assam, suggests that the traditional dances of the hills surrounding the Brahmaputra Valley likely played a pivotal role in shaping the aesthetics of Bihu. Bihu undoubtedly encapsulates the seminal components of the spring festivals and fertility rites of the region. I often find myself marveling at how such a breathtakingly beautiful, yet fundamentally primal, tradition grew into its present splendor. Can one find a folk tradition anywhere in India that rivals the elegance and richness of Bihu? Consider the Bhangra of Punjab. It possesses immense verve, yet it fares differently when one considers its proximity to the natural world. In Bhangra, the primal instinctual dance with nature does not play as conspicuous or attention-grabbing a role. The elements of melody and sensuality in Bihu are tethered to the elemental rhythms of the earth itself. It is here that Bihu achieves a unique harmony. When we examine the lyrical content, we find that Bihu songs reflect life in a way that is profoundly original, comprehensive, and artistically accomplished. While I cannot speak definitively on the literary merits of Bhangra lyrics, I am inclined to believe that Bihu songs, whose origins can be traced as far back as the 6th century CE, represent the most stupendous outpourings of the human heart, simultaneously serving as a chronicle of contemporary social mores. Take, for example, the song that captures a young woman's predicament. She longs to join the Bihu Tali, the vibrant space of song and dance, yet she fears her impassioned lover might abduct her on the spot. The lover, of course, is in no mood to wait for an auspicious moment to formalize their union. Yet, she braces herself. reasoning that he would not dare, for he would not go scot-free if he attempted such mischief. To bolster her own morale, she soliloquizes, "You'll be slapped with a fine if you dare indulge in such stupidity, man." Or consider the philosophical defiance in another classic verse, "God first created the earth, then he created us, the living beings. That Creator is a great lover, why then should we not love?" Even the destitute are not forgotten by the Bihu mood, they join in, singing of their own stark reality. Bihu today, Bihu tomorrow, Bihu is everywhere, but alas, I have not the clothes to join the celebration. The repertoire of Bihu is an enviable treasure bequeathed to posterity, an unbroken flow of creativity that began with the very first act of cultivation. Unlike many cultural traditions that have lost their way, Bihu has not sacrificed the essential elements of its origin. The magic of Bihu lies in this fidelity. Centuries of inspiration and innovation have enriched it, yet every layer remains rooted in the most truthful, uncomplicated, and unadulterated feelings of the heart. The spontaneity with which these emotions bubbled over, flowing in streams to join the great confluence called Bihu, has ensured that nothing superficial was ever allowed to tamper with its fundamental essence. Was this a conscious effort? I often wonder. In many cultural traditions, one might find originality, yet a lack of refinement can render the form undistinguished. Conversely, one might find sophistication, yet a lack of originality may render it hollow. Bihu stands alone as a folk tradition that balances both originality and refinement in perfect necessary measure. There is much about Bihu that eludes common perception. I cannot recall another cultural tradition in India that remains such a vital living part of the social fabric. It is rare for a fertility rite to metamorphose into such a sophisticated art form without compromising its original spirit and soul. Bihu songs depict contemporary social mores with such traditionalist finesse that one is left wondering if the people who own this culture ever felt the need to develop a separate literary tradition to portray or reflect their lives. If you enjoyed dissecting these ethnocultural and historical tweak points with me, consider joining our small circle of explorers by subscribing. Thank you.